All right. You know what's fascinating about this region? We went from the whole growth at all costs mentality to, wait, can you actually make money? All within the span of about 18 months. That pendulum has swung dramatically.
That's 1.5 years, and that's probably the most diplomatic way I've ever heard someone describe what's basically been a complete reality check for the entire ecosystem.
Exactly, right? And so we're going to be diving into exactly that today. So we've got a range of topics that we're going to touch on, from Malaysia pumping the brakes on data centers, AI
Mhm.
services absolutely exploding, and startups finally asking the revolutionary question: how do we build something that lasts?
And this isn't just about one country or one sector. We're talking about three massive shifts happening simultaneously that are reshaping how the entire region thinks about tech growth. And we are, at the third quarter of a year now, and things are happening. So yeah.
Exactly, exactly. We've got a lot to unpack today, so buckle up. Welcome back to Sea of Startups, the podcast that digs into the real stories behind building, funding, and navigating startup life in Southeast Asia. I'm Kevin Brockland, and as always, I'm joined by my co host Kim, who's been helping keep me honest about the messy middle between pitch decks and polished headlines for, what are we, 12 episodes, something like that right now?
Yeah, 12. 12. It's been a journey. I mean, September, we first started talking about this in January or February, and 12. And I have to say, today's topic feels like we're finally talking about a grown up version of everything we've been discussing since we started this show.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we're calling this one the new reality check because that's exactly what we're going through right now. We're seeing this across the region. And if you've been following along with our previous episodes, you know we love digging into the inflection points where we're looking at narrative shifts going on.
And touching on some spicy topics, and shift it has. We're talking about infrastructure getting strategic, AI services booming in ways nobody predicted, and the startup ecosystem finally growing up. About damn time, they would say. But Kevin, what makes this moment different is that all three are happening at the same time.
Yeah, so I mean, it's part of the growing pains of the region where we're trying to find that new equilibrium. As I referenced before, the pendulum is swinging. We're trying to find that new center point. The region well, it is slowing down, but it isn't really slowing down because it's just trying to get smarter. It's just trying to find its own feet again. And so today we're going to break down exactly what that looks like, what it means for founders, investors, and really anyone trying to understand where Southeast Asian tech is going.
It's at puberty, right? Kids hitting puberty, and then you find them sleeping, and then they're trying to grow up so fast, and then they're not because of sleeping and all that. So yeah, that's one life example that I'm looking at now. So not that I have kids, but anyway, so grab your coffee, settle in, because we're gonna take our time with this one. This is the kind of conversation that deserves space to breathe.
All right, so let's start with what I think is the perfect metaphor for this new era, which is talking about the data center story. And front and center of a lot of this story has been Malaysia because we've seen this massive boom. Malaysia's been leading the pack of Southeast Asia in
Mm-hmm.
regards to the amount of data centers that have been coming up, the committed investments, all of this sort of stuff. Kim, you've been tracking this closely as well, and I think this actually encapsulates how the region is kind of shifting presently.
And I'd say, like, given how it is shifting, like Jakarta, like we talked about at one point, HNext is 144 megawatt. I guess it has competition right now with Malaysia. So, imagine you're hosting the ultimate tech house party. That'd be fun, right? You have Microsoft, Amazon, Google, they all show up. But on the flip side, so do Tencent, Huawei, Alibaba. Everyone wants to be there because you've got cheap land, low electricity costs, and you're literally next door to Singapore's tech hub.
Yeah, yeah, but you know, we have this aspect where we have like a capacity issue that's going on,
Yeah.
and this whole data center boom, we no matter which part of the world that you're talking about, we have limiting factors that are naturally in it, and I'm not necessarily solely talking about chips. That's obviously a portion of this story, but it's not really just chips, because where a lot of this mentality is shifting around is because we're also talking about the challenges associated with the resources required. And
Yeah.
so resources that I'm talking about are really the energy in order to power these data sensors. And we're
Mm,
also talking about water because we're in a tropical climate. We need to be able to keep these things cool.
yeah.
And so some of the biggest considerations that are going on right now are revolving around these resources and whether or not they're sufficient in order to not have negative consequences to the rest of the population. Keep in mind that a lot of this data center boom is happening in the southern state of Johor, right across from Singapore, and a
Yep.
lot of that is because land is cheap, it's all available, and it's intended to power Singapore. Yeah.
Yep.
But what else are we sending to Singapore? We're sending water. And so if all of
Yeah.
a sudden the state of Johor needs the water in order to keep the data center cool, what's going to happen to the taps
Tapped
in
out.
Singapore?
That's what's
Uh,
gonna happen.
we're thirsty for the data center, so we're going to go thirsty for the water, or what's going to end up happening here?
Singapore stands to benefit a lot from this one. I mean, like you said, right? Resources is we are battling with it every day. I mean, I mean, it's not gonna help with climate change and whatnot. The world's gonna get hotter. How's it gonna compound on it? Europe's gonna be on our backs in a way. Um, yeah, and you know what? Malaysia, you know, the way I see it, it's so conflicting, right? On one hand, it's benefiting Malaysia so much. On the other hand, it's not as helpful to the environment. I'm on the fence on that one. And Malaysia has captured over 60% of all new center capacity under construction in Southeast Asia's major
Mm.
markets. And that's big. That's huge for Malaysia. Given where we are right now, I think that's a big win for us. But we're talking about a genuine boom here, right? Like the parties got too big for the house, infrastructure
Mm.
strain, sustainability concerns, and then this whole geopolitical layer that changed everything US versus
Yeah.
China. And you're seeing it pan out in this area as well. Like we're feeling it here because data centers, China wants in, US wants in, everyone wants in, and you know each of these factors tells us something different about how growth strategies are evolving.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not just a Malaysia problem. Like you have Jakarta,
Yep.
and Jakarta even then geopolitically is going through something as well. There are protests happening,
Yep.
so Malaysia seems like at this point seems like the one that's apart from Singapore benefiting it, right?
We definitely have to put it in context of these things, and you know, I think Singapore had a moratorium, which is the reason why a lot of it started getting built over in Malaysia. Across all the markets where we're seeing data centers being built up across everyone. It's just that
Yeah,
Malaysia's been capturing a lot of it, and part of that is because of the benefit of the proximity to Singapore. To be perfectly honest with you, because
yeah,
there's not the space or the capability in order to put it there, but a
yeah,
lot of the center still is dominated by there. So the closest place that we could end up putting it is inside of Malaysia. So Malaysia's definitely benefited from that aspect. But I think there's a number of other things in relation to this, like data centers are not per se a job creator in and of
yeah,
themselves. So when you think about all of this, when the government throws out these quotes of like billions and billions of investment going into data centers, it's not directly creating jobs or
yeah,
otherwise. Ultimately, you need the rest of the ecosystem. It's a precedent layer that you
yeah,
want to have those data sensors because there's value to those for the rest of the economy. But ultimately, you're going to need to get more of the local enterprises to make the switch to cloud. You're going to need to develop more of a tech industry. You're going to need to develop a lot more. This is just really one step to it. But the
yeah,
interesting thing is that I'm usually hesitant on regulation, but I do like the fact that they're finally reining it in because it was going to
yeah,
skew. It seemed like it was skewing too far. That
yeah,
there was just such a boom that it was just going to overpopulate and end up causing strains on electricity costs, on water resources, on all of these other variables that would end up having a detrimental impact on the rest of the market. At
yeah,
least they're reining it in.
yeah,
Ultimately, it needs to be a measured sort of pace, and it is good that it's coming.
yeah.
But it needs to be balanced, which is good. Like Johor's now got a vetting committee. You've got these other things that are going on, so it's not just the red tape. It's actually like trying to make sure that things are sustainable. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, the really fascinating part is the geopolitical chess game that's playing out. Like the US is quietly urging Malaysia not to let Chinese firms use local data centers as
Mm,
backdoor to obtain advanced AI chips that are under export ban. So technically, as much as China wants to, pun intended, chip in, US is saying no. We can't have you chip in, and that's getting really complex because you're not just talking about business decisions anymore. You're talking about national security. You're talking about trade policy and technological sovereignty all rolled into one. And this is happening not just within Southeast Asia, it's everywhere. Like Canada is
yeah.
looking at that. So many other places, and everyone's the protectionist walls are getting higher and higher as time goes by. As long as uh, if the Trump administration is really accelerating that, but it seems like it's happening everywhere. It's not just this end of the world. And U.S. officials are worried that the Chinese companies could route high-end AI chips into China via overseas data centers to train AI models for military or other sensitive purposes. That's not just business competition, it's strategic.
There's inevitably going to be that, trying to make sure that you don't see the transshipments, all of this. It's going to be very difficult in order to like stamp it out entirely. There's
Yeah.
inevitably going to be leaky holes. There's the geopolitics that are at play. Um, those are the types of things for like folks like us that are just operators, like business operators in the region that are just trying to get along with our day to day life and are
Yeah.
less sort of compelled for nationalistic or geopolitical purposes. We're just trying to operate business. We're just trying to continue on and do what we need to do. So. Uh, it is inevitably going to be a consideration. We can't turn a blind eye to it, but we also need to make sure that like we keep our sort of like business is business, guys. Let's just keep on trying to build cool tech new businesses, etc.
When you talk about businesses as well, talking about that, it's fascinating that how major players adapted, like GDS Holdings, one of China's biggest data center operators, quietly spun off their overseas operations into a separate entity called Day One. It's just funny how they named it, like as though this is a clean slate. They're operating in Southeast Asia. This is day one. We're not associated with China anymore. We're here, and day one is how we're gonna start.
Yeah.
It's not just corporate restructuring. I think it's just insulation from the geopolitical pressure. I think it's a smart way to do it, and it signals that these companies saw the writing on the wall and were trying to separate their international business from Chinese oversight and potential
Mm.
U.S. scrutiny. So I think this would ultimately help readers like us. There's some objectivity there. There's someone who is just being in the middle. We can go with it rather than getting stuck in between these two powerhouses.
It's definitely interesting. I mean, day one when you said that kind of made me laugh because I thought of AWS,
Ah, yeah.
uh, which always says it's still day zero. So I can't help but think of it and be like, okay, well, is this a play on the AWS, which is one of the like the biggest the players in cloud? But
I yeah.
certainly an interesting oversight as we see that there's more spin-off. I mean, it used to be that data centers were not like as big of an investment target, but like now the big private equity
Yeah.
infrastructure players that would normally build roads, telco operations, airports, railroads, ports, those sort of things. A lot of those players are now looking into mega data center projects. I think some of them were involved in the one that we discussed in Indonesia. There probably some of them are incorporated into some of these ones that are going on in Malaysia. I don't know the
Yeah.
investor base in a lot of them. I didn't do that research. I'm sure we could pull that info up. Um, but it's certainly interesting how infrastructure plays and what that means to the next level. Are we getting into the new era of AI and what that means for the rest of businesses?
It shows us, what responsible expansion, looks like when you have to balance both economic opportunity with resource constraints and geopolitical realities. And I think the takeaway for the broader system is really significant. Like the days of purely opportunistic infrastructure expansion where you just grab the bull by its horns or whatever opportunities are available without thinking through the second and third order effects. I think those are over. Like you have one belt, one road kind of thing. This is the next level. Like you're looking at data centers now, and um, you know, which creates interesting opportunities for other players as well, local operators, regional players who can navigate these complexities, companies that can build sustainable infrastructure from the ground. And it sets the stage for our next topic, Because while pure infrastructure plays are getting more and more complex, the applications and services layer is mind blowing on the next level. And in this where the story gets really exciting. While Malaysia is being strategic about data centers, the AI services industry is entering what I can only describe as, I'm not sure if it's golden age is the right word, because everything seems to be a golden age, then what's the next one, right? Or the gilded age, I don't know. And the timing couldn't be more perfect. I don't know what we call it. Which do you have any idea? It's like one door closing, another opening, right?
Well, I mean, it's there's a bit of flavor of the month, I think, to be perfectly honest with you. But it is one of these things to where everybody is talking about it. So as this infrastructure is getting built out, as the popularity and the awareness of AI and the productivity and the benefits that can come out of it, we need
Yeah.
to see transformation, digital transformation. We've always talked about digital transformation for a very long time, but now we have AI driven digital transformation, and a lot
Yeah.
of people are unsure how to do it. So we've seen like a boom of consultants that are coming out. The service industry is
Yeah.
getting revamped. It's their new heyday. They've got a new shiny toy to start selling people.
Everyone's selling something at this point. I mean,
Mm.
just look at LinkedIn. It's not just products now, it's your own brand too. So that says for something, right? Like, perfect example, Vietnam's AFPT Corporation just signed a $30 million MOU for multi-year AI transformation with one of the Southeast Asia's largest industrial conglomerates. Obviously, they're not going to say who, but we're talking about building factories of the future here.
That was an interesting story that slid across and kind of prompted this to be on the docket for today. But it's that's a pretty reasonable size contract
Yeah,
with a single company. And
yeah,
I think this is kind of indicative of what we're going to see elsewhere. Maybe not of that contract value. That's quite impressive. Good for them. Kudos.
yeah,
Would love to see it. Would maybe I'm in the wrong business. I should be doing digital transformation consulting. I've seen a lot of new consultants popping up that are AI experts that are targeting corporates. I've seen the big consulting firms of the world are now repositioning themselves. And if you go and talk to them, they sound more like tech companies than they sound like the old style management consultants. And so it's
yeah,
really kind of changing the game in regards to how we'll see Southeast Asia's top companies trying to
yeah.
figure out. And there's a ripe area for the services industry right now. So I think the timing is really interesting.
I think you're not too far from it, given how much exposure you're getting on all the automations. Maybe you can just take a jab at it. You never know, right? I mean, given your experience,
Hmm.
things could happen.
Yeah, I mean, the big challenge here, and one of the layers where consultants come in, is we talked about previously about kind of the MIT report. I think that was a
Yeah,
couple of episodes ago. Um, and so one of the areas, because the report highlighted that they're just not going deep enough in regards to where the high ROI is. But one
yeah,
of the big challenges in going after that is that there's a big change management component of it.
right.
And who always comes in anytime there's big change management to handle for a big corporate? A consultant firm.
Awesome. Yeah,
And so like there's this natural like pairing between these two where they just like it's a match made in heaven. That consultants and AI come together because they're looking at the corporates and saying they need to transform. There's a change
yeah,
management process that it has to go through
yeah,
in order for these workflows to fit seamlessly in or to learn these new toys. You need somebody to come in, help to go through the implementation. Most corporates don't have that internal ambassador or leader that can drive the change themselves. So they're looking for external help. There's going to be a boom in the services industry, and you see it with many of these consultant firms that are out there, as well as new ones that are popping up.
and it's gonna go from there. Everything's gonna be in tech now. There's no way of escaping. Is to change has to come with tech now. It's not just change consulting and helping with people management and whatnot. Every layer of consultancy now is ingrained with tech moving forward. That's how I see it.
So much,
Because
so
yeah,
much.
AI is at every level, every inflection, not inflection point, but every layer of how we think right now. Like even I just got to know from a friend, he's including AI in the way they hire. AI
Hmm.
is able to capture, and then from there, it's helping in a job, like literally shaping the job market right now. You can't survive without AI. There's no way around it, and there's no
Yeah.
two ways about it. And I think what strikes me about this approach is, this FPT is how methodical it is. They're not trying to revolutionize everything overnight. I think they're just trying to build capabilities layer by layer, proving its value at each step. And same goes to consulting as well, the matchmaking in heaven. It's literally the same thing, right? And it's working because FPTs has landed their largest ever contract,
Yeah.
$256 million over 5 years with a leading energy corporation. That's not
Yeah,
venture.
another big contract. They had a few
Yeah,
announcements just recently. So
yeah,
there was a handful of these ones that came out. I don't know if they intentionally planned it or maybe their PR department was behind kind of the timing around of it. Uh, but it's a great market opportunity. Traditional industries have deep pockets. So they generally struggle with complex operational changes, and they need outside service companies like FPT that have the expertise that can come in. And it's not just FPT. We're using them because that was the story that kind of prompted this to be on the docket. But
yeah,
there's a lot of other players out there. There's a lot of other consultants. And I think the broader takeaway out of this is that we are seeing large corporates now putting more resources, trying to get consultants in, trying to be educate themselves, trying to figure out how to do it. So we're at a really interesting inflection point where digital transformation is starting to take hold, and we're going to start seeing these implementations. That if you're so there's a couple of big takeaways that I would put this that to the audience
yeah,
that's listening right now. If you're a young person and you're trying to enter into the career workforce, AI
yeah,
is table stakes. If you don't have technical skills in some shape or another, you're going to be at a disadvantage. That's takeaway number one.
yeah,
Takeaway number two is if you're a startup looking at entering in and trying to sell your services into corporates, it's a great time right now because they're trying to figure it out. They're looking at ways to allocate these budgets. First, it generally oftentimes happens with getting consultants on board at first, but that's going to start the triggering to where they're gonna be trying to figure out new software to implement, new processes to implement, new technology to implement. It's a really good time to be looking at this space if you have the technical wherewithal.
yeah. And I think and even on a personal level, like for us, everyone for that matter, I think for hiring process, they don't just hire because of what you have qualification wise. It's also about your attitude, how you're adaptable, how you can really move with the market rather than anything else. Because the world is changing so fast that there's no way around of trying to be as technical as you can, but also being as adaptable and building those soft skills up as well. Talking about startups, right? Moving on
Mm,
to the next one. When we started this podcast, we were talking about startups prioritizing profitability over growth, and now
mm.
I think that's impossible because the entire region was built on the grow fast, figure out monetization later playbook, and the numbers don't lie. And the funding numbers are stark. We had the weakest deal making pace in over 6 years. We covered this some time ago, like
Yeah.
maybe 5, 6 episodes ago. And first half of 2025, only 229 equity deals raised about 1.85 billion total. Compared to that, when the money was flowing like water. But in this isn't just gradual market connection. The alleged fraud scandals that we also covered
Mm.
at some once celebrated startups, e-fisheries, hint hint, basically forced everyone to wake up and reassess everything. There were companies that were supposed to be poster children, Southeast Asian innovation. When the governance issues came to light, it shook confidence in the entire playbook. I think they're
Yeah.
calling it the Windows era.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean it's prompting a lot of reflection and reset that's going on in the ecosystem. But let's be honest, it's still nascent. So like if you think about it, the startup ecosystem has not existed for too extremely long in this part of the world. So we're
Yeah,
still going through the growing pains.
yeah,
Like if you've got, and I'll use little kids because I have little kids, so maybe this may not be relatable to every single person that's in here, but if you've got kids and they're running around the house and they knock over a vase and break and it ends up breaking, you're not going to say, it's terrible, we should never have kids, blah blah blah. It's just
Yeah.
one of it's the fact of nature that sometimes stuff is going to break as you're growing and as you're revising. Um, but the thing that is required is to try and turn this into a learning episode where we can actually come out of it more strongly. And I think I've long said that it's been the wrong strategies applied to the wrong geographies, leading to
Yeah.
the wrong outcomes. And we need
Mm.
a reset so that we're more sized appropriate in regards to the playbooks that we're looking at and the lenses that we're understanding that are specific and relevant to what the Southeast Asian context is. We can't copy and paste what's going on in
No.
other parts of the world. And if I
Yeah.
hear another person say, hey, we're bringing Silicon Valley into Southeast Asia, I mean, I roll my eyes every time I hear somebody say that because like it doesn't actually work. Bring some of the mentality and the risk accepting culture and mindset, but the
Yeah.
playbooks and the stage of development of the ecosystem is very, very different, and we have to keep that in context.
Yeah. Yeah. I think do you think fatherhood has kind of changed your perspective? Seems like your kids are really lucky to have you. Very patient. Seems like you're nice dad though.
Depends upon what they've done in the day.
But here's what gives me optimism about this shift. Like the capital is still there. Late stage companies with strong fundamentals are still raising money, but
Mm,
sometimes even good at valuation. But it's not that the investment has disappeared. It's just that the bar has been raised. Investors are going deeper on due diligence, asking harder questions about governance, requiring clearer paths to profitability. And also, like you said, you can't copy and paste Silicon Valley to Southeast Asia, nor it could happen
mm,
vice versa. Maybe it's easier on, when it's flipped, but Silicon Valley is in terms of the maturity and the lifestyle of the market and how it's been, it's way way far ahead from Southeast Asia, and it's still like you
yeah.
said. Maybe I'm not sure if it's hitting puberty, but still a kid, law.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean we've seen two main things. One is that the hot money, the money that chases momentum, that doesn't really have a thesis and is just
Yeah,
kind of following the herd. The sort of tourist capital, sort of is another way of putting it. That mostly has disappeared. A lot of the capital that still remains in the region and is being deployed
uh-huh.
is capital that actually is meaningfully attached and has strong connection to what's going on in the region and still has the confidence in order to deploy. So we have some positive signs that like we've rinsed out some of the bad influence, and now we've reset and we have a new foundation to build from. And the other
Yeah,
thing is that we're seeing a little bit of sector rotation to
yeah,
where some of the bad strategy has come from a misunderstanding of the consumer market.
yeah,
Um, that led to, in my opinion, a lot of bad decisions and theses that didn't come to fruition. It's easy for me to say that in hindsight. I've been saying it for a long time, however. But now we're seeing a lot more people giving more interest into what I've been preaching for a long time, which is the B2B side of things, enterprise SaaS, now AI, B2B solutions, basically the things that have more clear and demonstrable value propositions, value creation, as opposed to just vanity metrics
yeah.
and chasing eyeballs.
It's like what you just said as well. Like consumer super app dream is pretty much over, at least in its previous form. Like cash burning delivery apps, fintech plays that prioritize growth over fundamentals. Those business models look antiquated now. Again, it comes back to the fundamentals, right?
Mm,
Equity, still going through that profitable path. You can't just burn through the roof and not have anything to prove of. And what this means for founders is that the ecosystem is becoming more selective, more demanding, and I think it's compounded by this venture winter as well. It's not helping, but in terms of having the quality of startups, I think it's getting better. It's like you said, the funnel at 1.1 of the episodes that you're saying that the funnel is not getting as many ideas, even iterative as well as paying 10,000 to have ideas. People have ideas, and then they want more ideas to come in, and they pay you 10,000 just to get an idea out. So I think the
mm.
days of raising money on a pitch deck and a growth chart pretty much not over. They're still there, but it's not entirely as active as before, and it creates interesting opportunities for founders who can actually build sustainable businesses. Less competition for talent, more rational market dynamics, customers who are willing to pay for real value.
Yeah, it's exactly, and this is not unique to Southeast Asia. I mean, it's
Yeah.
amplified because Southeast Asia is a nascent market, so the dynamics that are pushing this mentality are a little bit stronger here because we don't
Yeah.
have as much depth in the capital stack. So we need to be more rational. We need to be more durable. We need these sort of adjustments. But you're seeing similar sort of change in mentality in Silicon Valley and Europe and other emerging markets. The whole like idea of burn, 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 growth at all cost. I mean, it's ending globally, but like that's the nature of maturation of ecosystems. We need to be able to weather downturns, adapt to the changing conditions, and this is kind of changing the dynamics for what the region's tech ambitions really are.
Yeah, which brings us, as we start to wrap this up, I want to zoom up and look at the bigger picture. Like we've got Malaysia being strategic about infrastructure, AI services booming, startups maturing. But what's a common thread here?
So we're seeing that pendulum swing, like
Yeah,
we always have this motion where there's an overcorrection. We're trying to find the equilibrium. So I think by and large, at least I hope that the Wild West phase is over. I
yeah,
hope that we have more rational actors coming in, understanding. But that doesn't necessarily mean that innovation has to slow. It
yeah,
means that we just need to be more focused. We need to be more sustainable. We need to have more contextualization that sustainable growth beats breakneck growth. And we also need to have the context of what's the end game. We
yeah.
don't have the IPO markets like Nasdaq in the US that we can have decacorn exits. We need to keep in mind what is the pathway and where the probability of outcomes going to be, and keep that into context in regards to, at least from the investor side, how we're approaching the market.
And I think we are looking at it as well in a more pragmatic, value driven way. Like the startup ecosystem maturation means we are likely to see companies that can weather economic cycles, adapt to changing conditions, and build long term value. And what I find encouraging is that don't think it's happening at the expense of ambition. The region still wants to build great companies, attract investment, drive innovation. The strategies have just gotten smarter. It's like your 20s, right? So the way I see it is like you're 20s, you break net speed, you're making mistakes, and now it's like it's the millennial generation essentially. You're just being more curious about things. You're more intentional about how you're going to bring it forward. So I think that's where we are at right now. This might actually make Southeast Asian tech more globally competitive in the long run. Companies built on sustainable fundamentals tend to be a bit more resilient when they expand into new markets.
Yeah, I mean, when we think of all the things going on in the world, we have climate change, resource constraints, geopolitics, geopolitical tensions, supply chain disruptions. We've got all this kind of crazy stuff that's making life uncertain, difficult, complex. This is the kind of resilient, sustainable approach that we need in tech development. It's not just smart business. It's essential in order to build durable companies, and that's what we need more of in the ecosystem is durable businesses.
Yeah, it's just grown up a little, and grown up ambitions tend to create solutions that actually stick around and make a lasting impact. So, for
Exactly.
our listeners who are building companies, investing, or just trying to understand where C Tech is headed, what are the key takeaways?
Fundamentals matter more than ever. Unit economics, sustainable growth, clear paths to profitability. These are table stakes now. They're requirements if you're going to find investors willing to back your dream.
And these are massive opportunities in B2B services, especially around AI transformation, like we spoke earlier, cloud migration, and digital infrastructure for traditional industries. So, leveling up essentially.
Exactly. We can't skip the geopolitical dimension, which is real and growing. It's unfortunate but true. Companies need to think strategically about the supply chains, data governance, regulatory compliance across multiple jurisdictions, and all the complexities thereof.
Just like life is a marathon, not a sprint. And companies who thrive in this new environment are the ones built for long term rather than short term metrics, not just vanity too.
Exactly. We're entering into a super interesting period in Southeast Asia tech. Easy money, fast money is gone, but the real opportunities are just believing. And I'm Strong proponent of that, very much championing the Southeast Asia tech ecosystem here.
And that's episode 12 of Sea of Startups. Thanks for diving deep with me on this one, Kevin. And it has felt like one of those conversations we really needed to have, taking the time to really understanding what's happening beneath the surface. And for everyone listening, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Are you seeing these shifts in your own experience? How are you adapting to this new reality?
Drop us a line, leave us a comment. If you're building something in this new landscape, reach out. We're always looking for stories that to highlight and see what's happening on the ground.
And if today's conversation sparks something for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. They're the kinds of discussions that help all of us navigate change more effectively. Until next time, keep building, keep adapting, and remember the most resilient companies are often built during the most challenging periods. Challenging periods equals to opportunity.
Thanks for listening to Sea of Startups. See you next time.